Isabella Martinez, that's my name. I never knew my dad, but honestly, I didn't feel like I was missing out on much. Mom worked her ass off to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. From as early as I can remember, I was helping around the house. Dishes, laundry, you name it. Mom always said, "Bella, you gotta learn to take care of yourself. The world ain't gonna do it for you." Those words stuck with me. Our apartment was small, but it was home. The sound of Mom's ancient sewing machine was the soundtrack to my childhood. She'd stay up late, mending clothes for extra cash. I'd often fall asleep to its rhythmic hum. What did I like? Computers. It started when our school got a bunch of donated PCs. Most kids used them for games, but I was fascinated by what made them tick. I'd stay after school, tinkering, learning. One day, Mr. Johnson, the IT teacher, caught me trying to install some video editing software. "What are you up to, Isabella?" he asked, eyebrow raised. I froze, thinking I was in trouble. I just wanted to learn how to edit videos. Instead of getting mad, he smiled. "Well, why didn't you say so? Let me show you a few tricks." From then on, every Tuesday and Thursday after school, Mr. Johnson would teach me the ins and outs of video editing. At home, I'd practice on our old, wheezing computer. As high school graduation approached, reality hit hard. College wasn't in the cards for me. The day after graduation, I marched into WKLP, our local TV station. The receptionist looked at me like I was crazy when I asked about job openings, but pointed me towards the HR office. 3 interviews and 1 practical test later, I had my first real job. Assistant video editor. The pay wasn't great, but it was a start. For the next 2 years, I worked my ass off. Weekdays at the station, weekends doing freelance gigs. Every penny I could spare went into my college fund. It was exhausting, but I was determined. Then, on a rare night out with Lisa and Carlos, everything changed. We were at this house party, some friend of a friend thing. That's where I met him, Ryan Thompson. He wasn't what you'd call classically handsome. Kinda nerdy, with thick-rimmed glasses and a slightly crooked smile. But when he started talking about his work in software development, his whole face lit up. I was intrigued. As the party wound down, Ryan asked for my number. I hesitated for a second, then thought, what the hell, and gave it to him. The next few months were like a whirlwind. Ryan and I started dating, and it was nice. Different from what I expected, but in a good way. One night, as we were walking home from a movie, Ryan proposed to me, and I agreed. The wedding was small but beautiful. My mom cried happy tears, and Ryan's parents, Linda and Robert, well, they surprised me. I'd been nervous about meeting them, given the whole wealthy family thing. But they were warm and welcoming from the start. The first 2 years of our marriage were good. Not perfect, but good. We had our own place, a cozy apartment not far from the TV station where I still worked. Ryan had his job at some big tech firm, and things were comfortable. We traveled a bit, mostly weekend trips around the country. It was more than I'd ever done growing up, and I loved every minute of it. Seeing new places, trying new foods, it was like a whole new world had opened up to me. But then, things started to change. It started with the little things. Ryan would sigh when I talked about work, or roll his eyes when I got excited about a new editing technique I'd learned. Then more. The first time he made an excuse not to take me to a work party, I didn't think much of it. "It's just a boring office thing," he said. "You wouldn't enjoy it." But then it happened again and again. One night, I overheard him on the phone with a coworker. "Yeah, just me tonight. You know how it is. Bella's not really into these kinds of events." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Not into these events? He'd never even given me a chance. That night, I confronted him. "Ryan, why don't you want me to come to your work events anymore?" "So you're ashamed of me?" "No, it's not that. It's just, sometimes it's hard for you to keep up with the conversations, you know? I don't want you to feel out of place. His words stung, but a part of me wondered if he was right. Maybe I did need to step up my game. So, I made a decision. I was going to go back to school. I enrolled in night classes at the local community college, studying information technology. It was tough, balancing work and school and my marriage, but I was determined to make it work. But even as I worked my ass off to improve myself, things with Ryan kept getting worse. The cold shoulder turned into open contempt. The man I married seemed to be disappearing before my eyes, replaced by someone I barely recognized. And then came the night that changed everything. I'd just gotten home from a late class, exhausted but feeling good about acing a test. Ryan was in the living room, a glass of whiskey in his hand. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "Class, remember? I told you I had a big test tonight." He scoffed. "You're a fool and a hillbilly, Bella. And no amount of schooling is going to change that." I felt like I'd been slapped. But before I could respond, I heard a gasp from the doorway. Linda and Robert was standing there, a look of horror on their faces. Linda leaned forward, her eyes flashing. "How dare you talk to your wife like that? Ryan, we raised you better than this." "You don't understand," Ryan said, his voice rising. "Do you know how embarrassing it is to have a wife who can't even keep up with basic conversations at work events?" I flinched, but Robert's next words shocked us all into silence. "Embarrassing?" he thundered. "Let me tell you about embarrassing, boy. Your grandfather, my father, didn't have a lick of formal education. He was born in the poorest part of town, worked his fingers to the bone to give me a better life. So don't you dare sit there and act like you're some kind of aristocrat." I felt a rush of warmth towards my in-laws, but Ryan's next words froze it in its tracks. "I'll behave how I see fit," he spat. "This is my life, my marriage." After his parents left, Ryan started going away more often. "Weekend trips with friends," he'd say, not even bothering to invite me anymore. I threw myself into work and school, taking on extra weekend gigs to fill the lonely hours. Then, my mom got sick. Cancer, the doctors said. It was aggressive, and within months, she was gone. I felt lost, adrift without my anchor. Ryan was barely there, offering awkward pats on the back instead of the comfort I craved. In my grief, I found myself turning to Linda more and more. She'd call to check on me, invite me over for tea, just sit and talk with me for hours. It was the motherly comfort I desperately needed. But this only seemed to infuriate Ryan more. One night, after I'd spent the afternoon at his parents' house, he exploded. "Why are you always over there?" he yelled. "Are you trying to turn my parents against me?" I was stunned. "What? No, Ryan. I needed someone to talk to." I went to bed that night with tears in my eyes, wondering how things had gone so wrong. A few weeks later, I started feeling off. Exhausted all the time, nauseous in the mornings. At first, I chalked it up to stress and grief. But as the symptoms persisted, a different possibility started to form in my mind. I bought a pregnancy test on my way home from work one day, my heart pounding as I waited for the results. When those two lines appeared, I felt a mix of joy and terror. A baby. We were having a baby. That night, I waited nervously for Ryan to come home. When he finally walked through the door, I took a deep breath. "Ryan, we need to talk. I'm pregnant." The look on his face wasn't joy, or even surprise. It was pure fury. "Pregnant?" he spat. "Are you kidding me? We can't have a baby now. Get an abortion, Bella. That's final." I fled the apartment, tears streaming down my face. Without thinking, I found myself at Linda and Robert's doorstep. When Linda opened the door and saw my face, she immediately pulled me into a hug. Through my sobs, I told them everything. About the pregnancy, about Ryan's reaction. I've never seen Robert look so angry, or Linda so determined. You listen to me, Isabella, Linda said, holding my face in her hands. This is your decision. If you want this baby, we'll support you every step of the way. Ryan be damned. The next few months were a blur of doctor's appointments, work, and growing tension at home. Ryan barely spoke to me, spending most of his time out with friends. I focused on my job, squirreling away every extra penny I could for the baby. One afternoon, I had a doctor's appointment to get some routine tests done. I'd taken half a day off work and was looking forward to a quiet evening at home afterward. As I pulled into our apartment complex, I noticed Ryan's car in the parking lot. Strange, he was usually at work at this hour. I climbed the stairs to our apartment, fumbling with my keys. As I opened the door, I heard Ryan's voice. I'll be there in a minute, babe. Just grabbing my overnight bag. My heart started racing. I stepped inside, and there was Ryan, packing a suitcase. Who were you talking to? Where are you going? Before he could answer, I heard a car horn honk outside. Ryan cursed under his breath and grabbed his bag. I don't have time for this. We'll talk when I get back. I followed him down to the parking lot, demanding answers. And that's when I saw her. Sitting in the passenger seat of Ryan's car was a woman. She was beautiful, with long blonde hair and perfect makeup. And she was very, very pregnant. As I stood there, frozen in shock, she got out of the car. She walked towards me with a smug smile on her face. So, you must be Isabella, she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I'm Melissa, Ryan's girlfriend. I turned to Ryan, who couldn't even meet my eyes. Is this true? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, still not looking at me. I felt a surge of anger and disgust. Aren't you ashamed? I asked Melissa, my voice shaking. He's married. We're having a baby too. Melissa's smile turned cold. Ashamed? No, honey, I had to fight for my happiness, and you've already lost this battle. It's not my fault you couldn't keep your man satisfied. I turned to Ryan, fury replacing my shock. How could you do this? To me, to our baby? He finally looked at me, his face a mask of indifference. Come on, Bella, we both know this marriage was a mistake. I never loved you. You were convenient. A good housekeeper, someone to keep the bed warm. But Melissa, she's my soulmate. She's smart, educated. She fits into my world. Each word was like a knife in my heart. I stood there, tears streaming down my face, as Ryan got into the car with Melissa. I'll be back on Monday to get the rest of my things, he said. We can talk about the divorce then. As they drove away, I sank to my knees in the parking lot, my world crumbling around me. I picked up my phone with shaking hands and dialed Linda's number. When they arrived at my apartment that night, Linda took one look at my tear-stained face and pulled me into a fierce hug. I listened, numb, as Robert berated Ryan over the speakerphone. His words were sharp, cutting. How dare you treat your wife this way, he thundered. The woman carrying your child. Ryan's voice came through, defensive and cold. Dad, you don't understand. Melissa is. Don't you dare mention that woman's name. Linda cut in. We will never accept her, do you hear me? Never. There was a pause, then Ryan's voice, eerily calm. Fine, I don't need your acceptance. I don't need you at all, I have Melissa now, and that's all I need. The next few months were a whirlwind. With Linda and Robert's help, I found a small apartment closer to them. The divorce proceedings were ugly, with Ryan fighting me every step of the way. But in the end, it was done. I was free of him, at least legally. When my daughter, Sophia, was born on a crisp autumn morning, it was Linda who held my hand through the labor. Robert paced the waiting room, every bit the nervous grandfather. Ryan refused to even see Sophia. When I took him to court for child support, he had the audacity to demand a paternity test. I agreed, knowing the truth. The results came back, confirming what I already knew, Sophia was his. The court ordered him to pay alimony, but I knew better than to count on his support. The years that followed were challenging, but also filled with unexpected joy. I threw myself into my studies, finally earning my degree in information technology. At work, my dedication paid off with a promotion to senior editor. But the real blessings were Linda and Robert. They embraced their role as grandparents with a fervor that sometimes brought tears to my eyes. Weekends were filled with trips to the park, family dinners, and impromptu movie nights. They were the family I'd always dreamed of, and Sophia adored them. 5 years flew by in a blur of bedtime stories, scraped knees, and proud moments. Sophia was growing into a smart, kind little girl, with her grandmother's smile and her grandfather's curiosity. Then, one ordinary Tuesday, everything changed again. Robert collapsed at home. The diagnosis was grim: advanced pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave him months, maybe weeks. I threw myself into helping Linda care for him. Work, Sophia, my own needs, everything took a back seat. Robert had been more of a father to me than my own had ever been, and I was determined to be there for him until the end. Despite our best efforts, despite the treatments and the prayers, Robert slipped away from us 3 months later. I held Linda as she wept, feeling as though I'd lost my own father. At the funeral, I stood between Linda and Sophia, our hands linked. Ryan didn't show up. I hadn't really expected him to, but his absence was a stark reminder of how far he'd fallen. As the weeks passed, Linda's health began to decline rapidly. The loss of Robert seemed to have drained her will to live. She became frail, often confused, and prone to long bouts of silence. The solution came to me that night as I lay awake, worrying. The next morning, I called my boss and arranged to work remotely. Then I packed up Sophia and our essentials and moved into Linda's house. Our new routine took some adjusting. I hired a nurse to care for Linda during the mornings while I worked on my video editing projects. In the afternoons, Sophia and I would take over. We'd read to Linda, help her with her physical therapy exercises, or simply sit and reminisce about happier times. Weeks turned into months. Linda had good days and bad days. On the good days, we'd sit in the garden, enjoying the sunshine and each other's company. On the bad days, I'd hold her hand as she cried for Robert, for the son she'd lost long before his father's death. One sunny afternoon, Sophia and I returned from a walk to find a man in a crisp business suit leaving the house. My heart raced, fearing the worst. "Linda?" I called out as we entered. "Is everything okay?" She was sitting in her favorite armchair, looking tired but composed. "Everything's fine, dear." That was just Mr. Harrison, my lawyer. I needed to discuss some legal matters with him. I nodded, not pressing for details. If Linda wanted to share, she would. "All right, how about some tea?" 3 weeks later, Linda passed away in her sleep. With shaking hands, I dialed Ryan's number. When he answered, I struggled to keep my voice steady. "Ryan, it's Isabella. Your mother passed away this morning." There was a long pause, then Ryan's voice, cold and detached. "Well, I can't say I'm surprised or particularly upset. That woman made her choices. Look, I'm not coming to the funeral. Just let me know when the will reading is scheduled." On the day of the funeral, the church was packed. Linda had touched so many lives, and it showed. As I stood at the pulpit to deliver the eulogy, with Sophia holding my hand, I looked out at the sea of faces. Friends, neighbors, colleagues, all there to say goodbye to a woman who had loved so fiercely and been loved in return. Ryan's absence was a palpable void, a reminder of the tragedy that had torn this family apart. But as I began to speak, sharing memories of Linda's kindness, her strength, her unwavering love, I realized something profound. Family isn't always about blood. Sometimes, it's about choice. And Linda had chosen to love me, to love Sophia, even when her own son had turned his back on us all. As we laid Linda to rest beside Robert, I made a silent promise. I would honor her memory by living with the same love and grace she had shown me. And I would make sure Sophia grew up knowing the incredible grandparents she had been blessed with, even if their time together had been all too brief. A few days after we laid Linda to rest, I received a call from Mr. Harrison, Linda's lawyer. "Mrs. Thompson, it's time to read the will. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I've already contacted Mr. Thompson. He'll be there." The next morning, I arrived at the law office, my stomach in knots. I took a deep breath and walked in. Ryan was there with Melissa, both dressed expensively and wearing matching scowls. Melissa's eyes raked over me, her lip curling in disdain. "Let's begin," Mr. Harrison said, opening a folder. As he read, I watched Ryan's face. At first, he looked bored, then confused, and finally, as realization dawned, furious. "This can't be right," he interrupted. "Read it again." Mr. Harrison sighed. "Mr. Thompson, it's quite clear. Your mother has left all her property, including the house, to Isabella Thompson and her daughter, Sophia." Ryan rounded on me. "You," he snarled. "You manipulated my mother, you gold-digging scum. Well, enjoy it while you can. I'm kicking you out of that house today." As they stormed out, Melissa paused at the door. "You might have won this round," she hissed, "but trust me, we're not done." I sat there, shell-shocked, as Mr. Harrison explained the details of the will. It wasn't just the house. Linda had left everything to Sophia and me, her savings, her investments, everything. "She wanted to ensure you and Sophia would be taken care of," Mr. Harrison said gently. "Linda loved you both very much." Tears welled up in my eyes. Even after she was gone, Linda was still looking out for us. But Ryan was true to his word. The harassment started that very night, incessant phone calls, threats, promises to destroy me. I changed my number, but it didn't stop. Then came the intimidation. Men would approach us on the street, making vague threats about paying what we owed. Sophia was terrified, clinging to me whenever we left the house. One day, as a man was making his usual threats, I discreetly hit record on my phone. As soon as he left, I went straight to the police station. The investigation moved quickly. With my recording and testimony, along with statements from neighbors who had witnessed the harassment, the police built a solid case against Ryan. When confronted with the evidence, Ryan's hired thugs quickly turned on him, confirming he had paid them to scare us. I'll never forget the look on Ryan's face when the officer slapped the handcuffs on him. In the end, I was granted a restraining order against Ryan. He wasn't allowed within 500 feet of Sophia or me, or to contact us in any way. That night, as I tucked Sophia into bed, I looked around the room that had once been Linda's sewing room. Now it was filled with stuffed animals and children's books, a testament to the new life we were building. "Grandma and Grandpa are watching over us," Sophia mumbled sleepily, clutching the teddy bear Robert had given her on her 3rd birthday. "Yes, they are," I whispered, kissing her forehead. "And they'd be so proud of you, my brave girl." Life had finally settled into a peaceful rhythm. Sophia was thriving in school, and I had recently been promoted to deputy director at the TV station. Linda and Robert's legacy had given us security, but I was determined to build our own success. One sunny afternoon, as I left work, a familiar figure stepped out from behind a parked car. Melissa, Ryan's wife, looked nothing like the polished woman I remembered. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed. "Isabella, please," she said, her voice breaking. "I need your help." I tensed, ready for another confrontation, but her next words caught me off guard. "Our son is sick. He needs surgery. Please, we need money. Just half of the inheritance." "You don't need it all, do you?" Something felt off. "What's wrong with him?" I asked cautiously. Melissa's eyes darted around. It's his heart. No, his kidneys. The doctors say." As she fumbled through her explanation, I remembered our first encounter, her smug smile as she declared victory in our battle. A cold clarity washed over me. "You know, Melissa," I said calmly, "someone once told me that I had to fight for my happiness. And it looks like you've already lost this battle." Her face transformed, the mask of desperation replaced by fury. You scum, she spat. You owe us that money. It should have been ours. I stood my ground. I don't owe you anything. Now leave, or I'm calling the police. As I walked away, her curses fading behind me, I felt a sense of closure. The last tie to my old life had been severed. That night, I made a decision. It was time for a fresh start. I sold Linda's house and bought a new one in a different neighborhood. Somewhere Ryan and Melissa wouldn't find us. Now, as I sit in our new living room, watching Sophia do her homework, I'm filled with gratitude. Gratitude for Linda and Robert, who loved us unconditionally. Gratitude for the strength I found within myself. And yes, even gratitude for the hardships that led me here.
Hi everyone, I'm Martha. It all started one busy afternoon at Starbucks. I was deep into my fourth coffee, completely absorbed in some design work for a major client, when he walked in. Logan Albert. Tall, charming, with an easy smile and an aura that felt both commanding and warm. Later, I'd learned he was the heir to Albert Industries. Mind if I share your table? Every other spot's taken, he asked, looking right at me. I glanced up, ready to politely say no, but something in his genuinely friendly expression made me nod. 2 hours later, we were still talking, bouncing from design trends to investment strategies like we'd known each other for years. I never knew someone could get so animated about font choices, he chuckled. Hey, typography is an art, I defended, laughing. Besides, Mr. Investment Banker, you just spent 20 minutes explaining hedge funds. That's how it began. Coffee dates quickly turned into dinners, and soon we were inseparable. 6 months later, he proposed at that same Starbucks table. It felt surreal, like I was in the middle of my own fairy tale. But fairy tales come with villains too. At our engagement party, his mother, Diana, with her perfectly practiced smile, pulled me aside. You're making a terrible mistake, dear, she said, her voice sweet but cold. We have expectations for an Albert bride. I brushed it off as protective mother syndrome. But then I noticed Richard, Logan's father, scrutinizing my off-the-rack dress, and Amber, his sister, making snide remarks about my humble beginnings. They're just old-fashioned, Logan assured me, squeezing my hand. They'll come around. My best friend Sarah wasn't as optimistic. Martha, these people make the real housewives look down to earth. Are you sure about this? But I was head over heels in love. We had a wedding, small by Albert standards, with only 200 guests. Diana managed to criticize everything from my dress to the flowers with a sugary, passive-aggressive tone. Such a creative choice, dear, she'd say, her eyes lingering judgmentally. But then again, it's what one might expect from someone with your background. Red flags popped up like weeds, but I was so enamored with Logan that I ignored them all. Soon after the wedding, though, I couldn't ignore the secretive phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room, or the whispered conversations at family dinners, and Amber's sudden eagerness to bond. She dragged me to sister lunches only to snap photos and document my every word on social media with an exaggerated "just bonding with my new sister" caption. The whole family seemed to be conspiring, but Logan insisted I was imagining it. Then came the night that changed everything. I'd been feeling nauseous all week, and the test confirmed it. I was pregnant. Bursting with excitement, I ran to tell Logan but froze when I heard voices from his study. Mom, this is ridiculous. Logan's voice sounded tense. Martha isn't after our money. Darling, we're just protecting you, Diana replied smoothly. The prenup lawyer is coming tomorrow. We'll see her true colors soon enough. I clutched my still flat stomach, my heart shattering as the realization set in. My fairy tale had morphed into a war zone, but they didn't know who they were dealing with. If the Alberts wanted to play games, I'd show them I could play to win. Looking back, I wish I'd seen it coming. But sometimes you have to go through hell to find your strength. It all truly came to a head at the Albert Charity Gala. Diana was huddled with her country club friends, whispering and casting poorly disguised sneers my way. She grew up in a rental in Brooklyn, one of them muttered, her eyes flitting to me. And her father was a mechanic, I hear. Beside me, Amber had her phone out, recording. So Martha, she started with a sly smile. Logan's really spoiling you, huh? Those designers must have cost a fortune. Actually, I bought these myself, I said firmly, keeping my voice steady. My design business is doing well. Later, at a family dinner, I heard a heavily edited version of that conversation played back, making me sound like a gold digger. The pressure was relentless. Between morning sickness and the constant tension, I was losing weight, barely holding it together. And then the worst happened. One night, I felt a sharp pain and knew something was terribly wrong. At the hospital, the doctor's words cut through me like ice. "I'm sorry, but you've lost the baby." I was devastated, but Diana's reaction? Even worse. "How convenient," she sneered with Logan silent at her side. "Get pregnant, lose the baby. Classic manipulation." I barely recognized the woman in the mirror as I stared back at my reflection, broken and grieving. Logan had grown distant, spending late nights locked in his study. One night, I found him staring at a pile of legal papers. "What's that?" I asked, dreading the answer. "Just some documents from Dad's lawyer," he replied, sliding them out of view. But not before I caught a glimpse. Postnuptial agreement. The final betrayal came at another family dinner. Excusing myself, I paused outside Richard's study when I heard him speaking to Logan. "Either you get her to sign, or you're out," he said in a cold, cutting tone. "No more trust fund, no position in the company. Do you understand what you're risking for this, gold digger?" "Dad, she's my wife," Logan argued weakly. "She's not. She's destroying everything we've built." Richard shot back. "Do you know she's been looking into our business records? I have been trying to understand why our joint accounts showed mysterious transfers, but they twisted even that. Just handle it, son, before she ruins us." When I got home that night, Logan was waiting, papers in hand. "They're just protecting our interests, Martha," he said. "Our interests?" I shot back. "Or their control." He sighed, frustrated. "You don't understand how things work in our world." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said, anger building. "I understand your family has been planning this since day one. Amber has been editing our conversations. Your mother's been spreading lies. They're trying to protect you, you say. From what, Logan? The woman who loves you. Or from having to think for yourself?" He looked stunned as I turned and walked away, my mind racing. They wanted to play dirty. Fine, but they've forgotten something crucial. I hadn't survived on my own all these years by being naive. It was time to show the Alberts exactly who they were dealing with. And I had just the plan to bring their perfect little facade crumbling down. Sarah's engagement party was the perfect hunting ground. I watched Amber knock back her fourth martini, her guard slipping with every sip. She cornered Sarah near the restroom, not noticing my phone, propped up behind a vase, recording every word. "You should have seen her face when she lost the baby," Amber sneered, her voice dripping with mockery. "Such a failed scheme. We've been working for months to get her out. Diana's brilliance, spreading those rumors, making her look unstable. And the recordings? Please, child's play. A few clever edits, and suddenly Miss Perfect sounds like a gold-digging witch. Logan is finally seeing her true colors." My hands shook as I retrieved my phone, but I knew this was just the beginning. Late one night at my design studio, while updating the Albert Industries website, I noticed something odd. Diana's digital signature on wire transfers to offshore accounts disguised under employee names. I tracked down Marcus, the former CFO, and his face went pale when I showed him the transfers. "She fired us all," he muttered, gripping his coffee cup tightly. "Claimed we were stealing. I tried to fight it, kept copies of everything." "I need those copies, Marcus." Working with Richard's biggest competitor, Robert Chen, was almost too easy. He'd been waiting years for dirt on the Alberts. "They destroyed my first company through insider trading," he admitted, sliding a USB drive across the table. "Everything's here, dates, accounts, recorded threats. But they're untouchable. Unless," I prompted. "Unless someone knows exactly where to look," he replied. Over the next few nights, I meticulously built my case, pretending to consider the postnuptial agreement while gathering evidence. Diana's embezzlement, Richard's insider trading, Amber's doctored recordings alongside the originals. Then, one evening, Logan found my laptop open. "What is this?" he asked, staring at the files. "It's the truth about your family. These are lies. My mother would never, my father." "Listen to this," I said, hitting play on Amber's confession. She was drunk. he protested. "You're twisting things." "Like they twisted everything about me?" I snapped. "The baby, Logan. They made you believe I planned that." "Stop it. Just sign the papers, please, before they take everything from me." "They already have, Logan. They took your spine, your judgment, and your wife's trust. But I'm done being their victim." The final piece came from Marcus, internal emails proving that Diana had systematically framed and fired employees to cover her embezzlement. The pieces were all there, a perfect trap ready to spring. "I'll sign your papers," I told Logan that night. "On one condition, a family dinner, one last time." He agreed, visibly relieved. Poor Logan, always choosing the easy path. But tomorrow's dinner would change everything. I'd invited a few special guests: Marcus, Robert Chen, and most importantly, the FBI's white-collar crime division. Let Diana serve her overpriced wine. Let Richard make his condescending toasts. Let Amber record every moment, because this time, I was orchestrating the show. And their grand finale was going to be spectacular. The Albert dining room had never felt so tense. Diana raised her glass, the practiced smile on her face, to family and new beginnings. "Perfect timing, Diana," I interjected, setting down my glass. "Let's talk about beginnings and endings." At that moment, the doorbell rang. Amber jumped, looking around nervously. "We weren't expecting anyone else." "Actually, I took the liberty of inviting a few guests," I said. Marcus walked in first, followed by Robert Chen, and then 2 FBI agents. Diana's wine glass slipped from her hand, red wine staining her pristine tablecloth. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, her mask cracking. "Show them, Marcus." He opened his laptop, projecting documents onto the dining room wall. Wire transfers, forged signatures, fraudulent terminations, all linking back to Diana's private accounts. "You framed innocent people, destroyed their lives to cover your embezzlement. These documents are stolen." Diana screeched. "This is slander." One FBI agent stepped forward calmly. "Actually, ma'am, these documents were legally obtained through a federal investigation." Richard's face turned purple. "I'll have your badge for this." "Sit down, Richard," Robert Chen said with a smirk. "The SEC is very interested in those insider trading deals you used to crush my company. The evidence is quite compelling." Amber lunged for her phone, desperate to salvage any part of their plan. But Sarah was quicker, holding up the phone Amber thought she'd hidden. "Looking for this." Sarah pressed play, and Amber's original, unedited recordings filled the room. "Funny how different things sound without your creative editing," Sarah remarked. "You planned this," Logan whispered, his face stricken. "No, Logan. Your family planned their own destruction," I replied calmly. "I just made sure they faced the consequences." The next hours were utter chaos. FBI agents searched the house as reporters gathered outside, cameras flashing. Diana was led away in handcuffs, screaming about family loyalty. 1 month later, Albert Industries faced a hostile takeover by Chen Enterprises. Marcus's whistleblower lawsuit exposed years of tax evasion, and the evidence was insurmountable. Logan showed up at my new office, looking haunted. "They're saying we'll lose everything. The company, the houses, even Mom's precious social standing. I should have listened to you." "Yes," I said, sliding the divorce papers across the desk. "You should have." 1 year later, my design firm is thriving. I even bought the building of that Starbucks where Logan and I first met. My latest campaign just won a national award, and Sarah now heads our digital division. Last week, I ran into Amber. She was working as a barista. Diana and Richard are awaiting trial, their assets frozen. Logan, he's living in a cramped studio, learning what real work means. Yesterday, Diana's lawyer called, saying they wanted to make amends now that their society friends have turned their backs. "Please tell Diana that, like her offshore accounts, I've transferred all my concern for the Alberts elsewhere," I replied before hanging up. Now I'm back at my desk, designing plans for my new beach house. The view is spectacular, though not quite as satisfying as watching karma catch up to those who thought they were untouchable. Some people think revenge is best served cold. I think it's best served with perfect timing, irrefutable evidence, and just a touch of poetic justice. The Alberts thought they could break me, but instead I broke their empire, all by using their own arrogance against them. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a sunset to watch from my infinity pool. Amazing what you can afford when you're not paying for someone else's karma. What would you do if you discovered your in-laws weren't just toxic, but criminals using wealth and status to ruin lives? Would you have exposed them immediately, risking everything, or gathered evidence methodically, like Martha, to ensure justice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hey everyone, I'm Elizabeth, owner of Perfect Moments Event Planning here in La. I barely got through my introduction when Jessica burst into my office, her decorator's clipboard clutched to her chest. "You won't believe this," she gushed, practically vibrating with excitement. "The Kardashians want to book us for their Christmas party. We're officially in the big leagues now." I was still processing this bombshell when Steven, my boyfriend and go-to caterer, walked in with his signature grin. "Babe," he said, his voice oozing confidence. "Ellen DeGeneres' team just called. They want us for her anniversary party." Perfect timing. I beamed, pulling up the design board for my upcoming 30th birthday gala. The magazine feature will showcase both events. 5 years of blood, sweat, and tears, and it was finally all paying off. But my celebration was short-lived. My mother's voice, sharp as ever, cut through the air like a knife. "Elizabeth." Margaret, my ever-critical mother, strode into my office with my brother Andrew in tow, his smug smile already stealing my moment. "Tell her your news, Andrew." Mom's eyes sparkled with pride. Andrew crossed his arms, leaning casually against my desk. "I just landed the Thompson wedding, biggest budget of the year." He shot a condescending look at my vision board. "Ashley's company is handling all the decor." Jessica rolled her eyes. "You mean your girlfriend's company that keeps undercutting our bids?" Andrew shrugged nonchalantly, eyes drifting to my Kardashian contract. "Can't help being the better choice," he said, the challenge in his voice clear. Before I could respond, my assistant, Mrs. Martinez, poked her head in. "Vogue is on line 1 about your birthday gala feature, Elizabeth." Mom barely glanced at the phone, her attention locked on Andrew. "Remember when he announced his college acceptance at your graduation party?" she said, her tone dripping with nostalgia. "Or his promotion at my college graduation?" "Yeah, Mom," I muttered, bitterness creeping in. "I remember." Steven stepped forward, his protective hand on my shoulder. "The birthday gala is a big deal for us," he said firmly. "We're announcing our expansion with all our major clients attending." "Actually," Andrew interrupted, flashing a too-wide grin, "I have some pretty big news to share that weekend too." My stomach dropped. It was the same feeling I got when he announced his scholarship at my Sweet 16, his new job at my housewarming, his promotion at my business launch. "Oh honey," Mom said with that familiar edge in her voice, "your brother's moment shouldn't have to wait just because of a party, right?" I forced a smile, looking at my vision boards, client contracts, magazine mock-ups, everything I'd built over 5 years. "When has anything ever been just about me?" I whispered, catching Jessica and Steven's concerned glances. But this time, it was different. I had too much at stake, and as I watched Andrew scroll through my client list with far too much interest, a cold realization hit me. This wasn't just about stealing my spotlight. He was planning something bigger. The family brunch felt like a trap from the moment we sat down. Before Mom even finished pouring the mimosas, Andrew stood up, pulling Ashley with him. "We have amazing news," he announced, his grin almost feral. "We're engaged, and we're having the party of the century 2 weeks from Saturday." Mom's champagne glass nearly shattered in her excitement. I felt the blood drain from my face. That's my birthday gala. The magazine feature, the business anniversary." "Oh, sweetheart," Mom waved her hand dismissively. "You can do that another time. Your brother is getting married. And Ashley's company is handling everything," Andrew added smugly. "They're even giving us the celebrity package normally reserved for A-listers." My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "The Kardashians just canceled." Something about hearing we're unreliable. Andrew leaned in closer, his voice dripping with Fox concern. "Since you're not using that weekend anymore, maybe you could help plan my engagement party, for free, of course. Family discount." Another buzz from Steven. 3 more vendors backed out. Someone's telling them we're going bankrupt. "I can't cancel my event," I said through gritted teeth. "We have contracts, commitments. About that property we promised for your expansion." Dad spoke up, finally breaking his silence. "We've been thinking of selling it." Andrew and Ashley found a great developer. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, celebrity clients canceling, vendors pulling out. 5 years of reputation crumbling in real time. Your brother needs our support right now, Mom said, her voice steely. Don't be selfish. That night, as I sat alone in my office, Ashley slipped in, her expression nervous. You need to know something, she whispered. Andrew's been meeting with my boss. They're targeting your client list. The engagement party is just a front to get them all in one room. Why are you telling me this? I asked, stunned. Because I saw their plan. They're not just trying to steal your clients, they want to destroy you. Andrew's been spreading rumors, sabotaging your vendor relationships. He can't stand that you're more successful than him. Just then, Stephen burst in, his face pale. Babe, you need to see this. Andrew's been reaching out to every one of our high-profile clients, offering them deals through Ashley's company if they drop us. I sank into my chair, surrounded by 5 years of work, watching it all start to unravel because my brother couldn't stand to see me shine. Elizabeth, my mother's voice cut through my thoughts as she appeared in the doorway. The caterer for Andrew's engagement party just canceled. You'll handle it, right? Family has to come first. I looked up at her, really looked at her, the mother who had enabled every moment Andrew stole. The woman who was helping him steal this one too. You're right, Mom, I said, forcing a smile as an idea began to form. Family does come first. I'll make sure Andrew gets exactly the party he deserves. My phone buzzed with a message from Jessica. Andrew's sneaking into our office at midnight. He's photographing our design boards, copying client files. The attached video played on my screen, confirming my worst fears. Jessica texted again. Found something worse. He's showing your designs to clients, claiming they're his work. Before I could process this betrayal, the emergency exit door burst open, and Ashley stumbled in, mascara streaked down her face. Andrew just tried to crash the Wilson wedding setup, she gasped. He told them you stole his concept. My phone rang, the magazine editor on the other end sounding uneasy. Someone offered us a substantial sum to kill your feature, claimed you're unstable and unreliable. The call came from your family's number. Stephen rushed in, panic etched across his face. The vendors are talking. Andrew's done this before, started rumors, stole designs, destroyed reputations. He's not just jealous, Elizabeth. He's trying to ruin you. Ashley's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. Look at these emails. He's been plotting this for months. The engagement party. It's a setup to humiliate you in front of everyone. Mom and Andrew walked in just then, their smiles too bright. Just met with the Stevenson wedding party, Andrew said with a smug grin. Funny how they canceled with you right after. Must be those mental health rumors going around. My vision blurred. 5 years of building my business, my reputation, my dreams, all being destroyed by my own brother. Did you really think you could outshine me? Andrew sneered, leaning in close. I'm the successful one, the star. You're just the crazy sister who can't handle my happiness. Mom nodded, her voice dripping with false concern. Sweetie, maybe you should take a break. Get some help. Let Andrew handle your clients for now. My phone buzzed again. The celebrity wedding planner I'd admired for years. Heard disturbing things about your business practices. We need to discuss your industry reputation. I glanced at Ashley, who slipped me a USB drive. Everything's here. The stolen designs, the sabotage plans, the smear campaign. He thought I was his puppet, she whispered. The final text from Jessica flashed on my screen. Security cameras caught him trying to break into our system again. We've got him on video. I stood up, something inside me snapping after years of letting Andrew steal my light. Not anymore. You want a show, Andrew? You want the spotlight? I said, my voice cold as steel. Your engagement party is going to be unforgettable. I promise you that. Mom started her usual defense, but I was already walking away, letting them think they'd won, letting them think they'd broken me. The ballroom glittered just as Andrew had envisioned, every detail perfect for his big moment. I watched from the corner, seeing him work the room, charming my former clients, completely unaware of what was about to unfold. Everything's ready, Jessica whispered, adjusting the presentation screen. Security's in position in case he tries anything. Stephen squeezed my hand. The magazine team's here, and look who else showed up. Every major player in LA's event industry. I nodded to Ashley across the room. She took a deep breath, gripping the microphone. Everyone, If I could have your attention before Andrew makes his speech, I have something to share. The screen flickered to life, showing security footage of Andrew sneaking into my office, stealing designs, and copying client files. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "That's my concept board," the Kardashian planner shouted. "He told me it was his original design." More evidence flashed on the screen, emails of his sabotage, client poaching, and a list of my vendors he'd stolen. Andrew lunged for the podium, but Ashley stepped back, her voice steady. "I'm not done. Here's how Andrew planned to destroy his sister's business. And yes, I have proof of everything." Mom tried to grab the microphone. "My son would never." Actually, Mrs. Martinez, the magazine editor, interrupted, stepping forward. "We have recorded calls of you helping him spread rumors about Elizabeth's mental health." The room erupted. Former clients confronted Andrew, industry leaders pulled out their phones, documenting everything. "You're finished in this industry," the head of the Event Planners Association declared. "Every legitimate company will know what you did." Andrew turned to Ashley, desperation replacing his smirk. "Baby, we can explain." "Explain this," she snapped, projecting their private messages where he bragged about ruining my life. "We're done." I stepped forward, watching as Andrew's world crumbled. "The engagement party's over," I announced to the stunned crowd. "But my birthday celebration, that's just getting started." Security moved in, escorting Andrew out as he screamed about family loyalty. Mom trailed behind him, still trying to defend him. But I didn't care anymore. The weight of their betrayal lifted from my shoulders. The magazine editor turned to me with a raised champagne glass. "To Elizabeth Martinez, whose exclusive story just got much more interesting. How does a national feature sound?" 3 months later, I stood in my expanded office, gazing at the latest Vogue cover story. Perfect Moments: How Eve's top event planner turned betrayal into an empire. Maya burst in, waving her tablet with excitement. 2 more celebrity bookings. And guess who's planning the Oscars after party? Your brother's company just filed for bankruptcy, Stephen added, wrapping an arm around my waist. And Ashley. She's running her own successful business now, the right way. I smiled, glancing at the framed photo of my new team. This was my real family, loyal, supportive, and free of the toxic manipulation I had once mistaken for love. No more stolen moments. No more giving in. No more toxic family-first nonsense. My phone buzzed. It was Mom sending her weekly attempt to fix things. I deleted the message without a second thought. Another text followed. An industry blacklist notification. Andrew couldn't even get a job planning kindergarten parties. Perfect moments aren't given. They are created. And this one, it was absolutely perfect. If your sibling was sabotaging your career, what would you do? Would you expose them publicly like I did, or try to handle things privately to preserve family peace? And here's an even tougher question. Was I too harsh in completely cutting off my mother, who enabled Andrew's toxic behavior for years? Should enablers be given a chance to make amends, or is going no contact sometimes the only way to protect your peace and success? If you've dealt with toxic siblings or enabling parents, hit subscribe for more stories about standing up to family manipulation and choosing your own happiness. Sometimes the hardest battles are fought against the people who should be supporting you the most. Drop your thoughts below.